Welcome to A Court of Fairies and Fangirls. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is a Sarah J. Maas fan podcast where we are obsessed with her books and can't stop thinking about them or talking about them. So we figured, why not record us thinking and talking about it?
We're going to break down chapters, go through each book separately, go into character analysis and any thoughts or kind of theories that we have about books, characters, plots, etc.
And maybe play some fun games along the way.
Exactly.
So welcome and enjoy. Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome back. So this week we are doing chapters 13 through 16 of A Court of Mist and Fury.
And this is called The Inner Circle.
Ooh, so exciting.
It really is.
Oh.
It was longer this week, but it was a lot of good stuff.
I know. It gets so juicy, and I'm so excited because we meet all these new characters, so many more interactions, and I mean, I know how this ends, so I'm just so excited that we're meeting the inner circle now.
Yes.
But for all of you who haven't read ahead yet, it's very exciting to just meet new characters and kind of develop relationships anyways.
Yes, it's fun to keep exploring this world and the types of people in it.
Yes.
What are your first thoughts on chapter 13?
Chapter 13, I don't know, like, it was hard to read how broken Pharaoh was afterwards. And at first I was like, wait, what happened in chapter 13? Or like, what happened before?
Summarize.
Oh, you can summarize first, and then I'll give you my overall thoughts.
I'm sorry.
No, please.
Pharaoh awakens in the night court and comes to terms with what to do in the aftermath of Tamlin locking her in the manor. Continue. Thoughts.
Yes. It was just hard to wrap my head around the fact of like what had happened.
Yeah.
And where she's kind of at. It's kind of one of those things, it's like you just went through something so traumatic that you're like, did it actually happen? Yeah. And that's kind of what I felt like reading it too. It's like, I know I read it, I know it happened. Yeah. But did it really happen? Did Tamlin actually do this? Did she really just leave? Yeah. Or get taken away, whatever. Yeah. Yeah, so that was kind of my thoughts initially.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting that right as she woke up, she saw Rhysand. Yep. And I thought his reaction was just startling, maybe. Just, it said that there was no kindness in his eyes, nothing but an ending, icy rage. Yeah. And then he was like, you were screaming, which is just like, I'm like, oh, what did he experience on his end that he's like so upset?
Yeah, because I forgot about the bond. Like, he felt probably whatever she was feeling, so I can only imagine.
Yeah, well, we read her trauma, so like imagine just like sitting in a meeting and then all of a sudden that hits you from the side. Yeah. And like pretty early on in the chapter we kind of find out what Moore meant when she said that she did everything by the book. Yeah. Basically Rhys is saying that if he had gone into Tamlin's court to rescue Feyre, he could have started a civil war. Right. So I was like, oh well, I get why Moore went then. Yeah. Court politics, man. I thought it was funny though that Feyre's first like question outside of what happened was she was asking if she hurt anybody. Yeah. And I'm like, Feyre.
I know. I did like that though, because I like that she's still concerned. It's like she hasn't lost who she is totally. Yeah. And especially because she kind of just had this massive breakdown of like huge influx of power. She has no idea what she's capable of. So I like that she's still concerned about others.
Yeah. It's sweet. I'm also just like, take care of yourself, honey.
I know.
Just like focus on taking care of yourself.
It's also still just crazy, like thinking about her turning into like this black, like
cloud of
darkness and ice and rage and wind and everything.
Ugh, so crazy. But we find out that since this is not part of their monthly requirement, she doesn't have to come. Like, there's no timeline when she has to stay at the night court. She's free to do whatever she wants.
Which is good and bad, I think, honestly, because if there was a timeline, I think it would kind of force her to maybe kind of face what happened. Yeah. And kind of figure out how she wanted to deal with it. But then again, I think of the past, what, has she been to the night court 2 times at this point? She knew she only had a week there, and she still never came up with what she wanted to say to Tamlin when she came back. So I feel like even if there was a deadline, she still wouldn't have actually done anything with her time and like figured out anything about herself or what she wanted to do or say to Tamlin. So I don't know, good and bad.
Yeah. One of her responses to him just made me really sad, and it was, "I have nowhere else to go." It was both a question and a plea.
Yeah.
Ugh. But, like,
it's true.
Like, that's all she knew
in
Prithian. And it's like, what's she going to do? Go back to her family?
No. So. I know. And she said, "I need to go back at some point." And he said, "Say the word and it's done." He meant it too. Even if I could tell from the ire in his eyes that he didn't like it. He'd bring me back to the spring court the moment I asked.
Can we just appreciate someone who respects another person's decisions?
Yes. And he doesn't even ask questions. It's like, okay, like, yes, if you say you want to go back, we'll take you back. Like, that's it. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's you say the word and we'll make it happen. Yeah. And I was like, why wasn't Tamlin like this? Yeah. So it makes me, like, respect Rhys a lot in that he's just totally whatever Farrah's decision is. And it's like, he didn't have to save her. He still doesn't even know her. Right. Like, they had their time together under the mountain, which consisted of all of him helping save her. Yeah. Her dancing for him every night drunk on fairy wine. Like, there's really not much. They don't know much about each other.
Trauma can bring people together and they experience similar trauma, but, like, you're right, they don't, like, know each other very well.
Right. So for him to just be like, yeah, whatever you need, like, whatever you want, like, I'll make it happen kind of thing. I'm just like, that's really considerate, especially for a High Lord. Yeah. To just do for Farrah.
Yeah, it's like, don't you have other things to be doing?
I know.
But he does say that, like, he offers her a job, basically. Right. Which I think it's funny because I think he in some way knows that, like, Farrah isn't one for charity. Yeah. And so he's trying to offer her, like, that opportunity as someone who, like, doesn't have a place. Right. Which, I don't know. I thought that was cool. Yeah. But her first thought goes to Tamlin. Tamlin would be furious. He'd shred the manor apart. And I was like, he is haunting her. Yeah. Like, every thought, every movement is controlled by him, even still.
Yeah. But she does think at one point, she says, or she's thinking, she doesn't say, I wasn't going back. Maybe I'd never even gotten to come back, not from under the mountain. And I was like, oh my gosh. Just, like, the trauma that she's carried with her in regards to, like, how it's affected her relationship with Tamlin, how she can't even, like, live. She's just so hopeless, like, dead inside. And it makes me really sad.
Well, and she also was thinking at one point, she said, I did know that if I stayed in that manor, if I was locked up one more time, it might finish the breaking that Amarantha had started. Yeah. Which is, like, yay self-awareness, but also,
I know. And it's like, thank God Rhys got her out when he did. It's like she would have totally crumbled and just been lost.
Yeah. Poor girl. Ugh. Let's see, what next? Oh, we start digging into her fae powers a little bit, learning a little bit about them.
And then Rhys kind of just says that, you know, she should take a nap, like, lay back down, like, he's got stuff to do, and he'll just kind of let her rest. And she's like, I want to come. Yeah. He's like, well, I think you should rest. And she's like thinking to herself, and she decides that, you know, even though she's completely drained, she can't be stuck by herself with just her thoughts again. So she asks to go with Rhys. She says please, like, at the end of it. It's like, and, like, that killed her because she knows, like, how it didn't do anything to help with Tamlin when she was asking him, and it's just, she shouldn't have to beg basically to go with him. And he tells her, you know, like, if she goes with him, then she'll need to keep this a secret. Everything that she sees, everything that she hears, like, from, I forget what he calls them, like, her friends back home or whatever, the people that she knew. Yeah. And that's, like, a huge decision because that's going to impact everything going forward. It's like, if you take this step, you're going to be lying to your fiance, you're going to be lying to Ianthe, to Lucian, to everybody you left behind. And are you okay with that?
And she decides yes. Yeah. Which to me means that they've lost her. Like, in some way.
She's either given up on them, or she's decided they're not worth it anymore, or she's changed. She's made some kind of, like, internal decision. Even if she hasn't recognized it, maybe, she's made the decision that she's left at least, like, some part of her life behind. Right. So.
And then Rhys tells her we leave in 10 minutes, which it's like, someone's bringing her along?
Yeah. I know, she actually gets to do something. Whatever that is. And he takes her, so they winnow, and he takes her to a townhouse.
He tells her where they're going.
Right. Oh, yes.
To the city of Starlight.
Yes.
Which we've heard about the Court of Nightmares. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of cool that there's, like, the other half of night that exists also.
Something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he takes her to a townhouse, and she said this house was a home that had been lived in and enjoyed and cherished, and it was in a city. And she's just like questioning the whole city thing, because she's like, how can there be a city? Like, Amarantha destroyed everything. Yeah. And this must be obviously like a city of ruins kind of thing before she even gets there.
But like, how impactful that she's in a home.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the word that she's emphasizing there, because I don't think the manor back in the Spring Court ever felt like a home. It felt like a manor, like something really fancy and a place where other people existed. It wasn't like her home.
Yeah.
And this, she can like tell the difference.
Yeah, she's tell
like,
that, like,
oh, this is a home.
Yeah, this is where people like want to be, want to live, kind of thing.
Yeah, which is just like really precious.
So
that's how 13 ends.
I know.
Chapter 14.
I'll let you summarize.
Really simple. I put, Feyre arrives at the city of Starlight and gets a glimpse of Rhys's home and his inner circle.
What were your overall thoughts on this one? Or kind of initial thoughts?
I thought, so this wasn't a particularly long chapter.
No.
But I thought it was cool how right out of the gate we start to see this other side of Rhysand.
Yes.
Because he starts off with being like, welcome to my home. And they have guests that appear, which kind of like bring a cool, like, because it's like, they're clearly either like his like the people who like work for him, like his counsel or his friends, like they're somehow connected to him, and they're very, what's the word I'm looking for? Informal.
Yes.
So you kind of lean towards like maybe more friendly. And so it's just cool, I think, to see the glimpse of that side of him, because we've just seen him very serious, up to date, and like taunting, but like mostly just serious. Right. So I'm intrigued to learn more. This chapter was just mostly intriguing for me.
Yeah, I agree. And so what I thought it was interesting, because we find out it's Rhys's second home.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, he brought Feyre into his home. And he even says that, like, the only people that can winnow in are him and Moore. Yeah. And it's, warded and everything like that. And I was like, so you're willing to bring this person that you don't really know?
Well, he says, this is only for me and my family.
Yeah. I'm like, so she's family? Like, you're okay with just bringing Feyre along?
Yeah.
Into your second home?
It was surprising.
I was very surprised when, like, I learned kind of what the house meant to him, or what he thought of the townhouse. But I was like, okay. I mean, I appreciate that. I like that he's just like, she said she wants in, and he's just truly just bringing her along.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And then Nuala and Caradwyn are here.
I know, which I'm happy they're there. Yeah. Like, and I feel like they talked a little bit more in this chapter than they have in the whole book and like past book and a half.
Truly.
Which, I mean, they didn't speak much, but it was still just, I was like, oh, they do have something to say.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was just thoughtful that he also brought them along.
Yeah, for her.
Yeah.
And then, so 2 males appear outside his door.
Yes.
And I love that they seem to be taunting Rhys, and he seems to be enjoying it. Like, there's like a twinkle in his eye, and he's smiling. At least that's what it looks like from Farrah's perspective of like what she can tell.
Yeah.
So I really like, I'm like excited to see him like a normal person kind of, or a normal fairy, like having these funny, sarcastic interactions with people.
And I like how he starts with like 2 things, Feyre darling. Like I imagine him like turning to the door, turning to her and being like, all right, let me explain something right now. And it just makes me laugh.
I know. I can totally picture it.
Yeah. And so he tells her 2 things. The first is that she's safe and that the city has not been breached for 5,000 years. So that's
a long time.
That's a long time. But it's so it's untouched by Amarantha, by anybody.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So, like, her thoughts of it being a ruined city are not the case.
No. But it's interesting because I didn't even realize that in the, like, mortal realm, they don't even have cities there. Yeah. It's kind of what she said. I was like, wait, really? That's kind of, well, I mean, for me, it's, like, hard to comprehend because I was like, people just, all we want to do is, like, be around each other, and we just build houses right next to each other. So you'd think cities would have kind of evolved at that point, but she says there was no cities in the human realm or in, like, Prithian that she knew of. So I'm just kind of like, this is crazy. This is, like, the only city kind of ever, like, or anywhere right now. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be... Obviously, we've read this section, so we know she'll eventually venture into the city, but it's just, I'm sure all of that's going to be very, like, shocking.
Yeah.
It's something she's never seen before.
Yeah, it's like, how do you
describe a city to someone who's never seen a city?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, what? That's like, I feel like that's like going to some rural spot in Africa and telling them, oh, yeah, just go to the city. Like, right. What?
Tell them about New York.
Right. It's this concept that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So,
and then the second thing, he says, in regards to the two bastards at my door, it's up to you whether you want to meet them now or head upstairs like a wise person. He goes, like, take a nap, etc., while I beat the hell out of one of them for talking to his high lord like that. So it's like, you see two things in that, right? See his, like, again, giving her a choice.
Yep.
And, like, wanting to make sure that, like, she's doing what makes her most comfortable.
Yep.
But then also the playfulness with those same folks. Yep. And she said there was such light in his eyes. It made him look younger somehow. And it's just like, I don't know. There's something special about seeing a person, like, in their home. And you're just like,
it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like people that are just lighthearted, that seem to enjoy other people. Yeah. Whereas everything at the Spring Court was so opposite. It was so very much like formal by the rules. Like, Tamlin didn't want, you know, Farrah to be part of anything formal or like involved in any of the knowing what's going on, whereas she just has a choice here.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
It's just, it's weird too.
And in regards to that, so Farrah chooses to not meet them right now. So she goes upstairs with the Shadow Wraiths, and she finds out that these people are Rhys's inner circle. And she says, I wasn't aware that High Lords kept things so casual. And they said, I think it's Cerulean says they don't, but Rhysand does. And I was like, that's interesting that of all the High Lords, you would think that Rhysand probably wouldn't be the one, because, like, we know
everyone's terrified of him.
Right, everybody's terrified. We know him as Amarantha's whore. All these negative things about him. He's the person you're not expecting to be so casual, be so cool.
Yeah.
So it's just it's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, that was Nuala. I just found
Nuala,
that quote.
Sorry.
No big deal. But even as she's, like, slinking away upstairs with Nuala and Cara Dwyn, you get a further glimpse of, like, his people.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's the two males, but now there's also a strange female, and there's more. So we got, like, 4 people downstairs doing God knows what. Oh, and then she starts asking about the city.
Yeah.
She's like, how is it here?
And unfortunately, like, we don't get the full story.
Yeah.
But to me, obviously, that just means we'll find out about it later.
Yeah.
Because they always allude to things. It was like the Suriel, how she was asking how to catch it, and then obviously she's going to go catch it. So it's like, we're going to find out how this city basically withstood 5,000 years without being touched. It's crazy.
That's my big question. Cara Dwyn kind of she alludes to it. She says the High Lord is very powerful and was devoted to his people long before his father's mantle passed to him.
Yeah.
So we know that he, like, deeply cares.
Right. And he probably did something, but
like, what?
I don't know. I don't know how you defend a city or, like, keep a city secret.
Yeah. And then towards the end of that chapter, she said something really sad. She said, I listened to the crackling fire, the chirps of birds in the garden's potted evergreens, so different from the spring sweet melodies I was used to, that I may never hear or be able to endure again. Maybe Amarantha had won after all. And it's like, is Amarantha the reason why her and Tamlin are working anymore?
I mean, I think
There's some truth to that.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
I know. Yeah. I don't know.
But on a small flip, she does say, and some strange new part of me wondered if my never returning might be a fitting punishment for him for what he had done to me. And I was like, the Taurus in me who is all about, like, vengeance and forgets nothing is like, perhaps Tamlin.
Well, I think it's good that she's not just immediately forgiving him.
Yes.
She's like, I don't want to say holding a grudge, because I don't think people should hold grudges.
This is not her holding a grudge. This is her right after that experience.
Right. I like that she's not just automatically forgiving him and automatically just being like, yeah, I'll go back and it'll be fine and we'll figure it out. It's like, she's like, no, like, he kind of deserves punishment for what he did. Like, it's not okay that he locked me away.
Well, and she's not pulling the classic girl card of like, oh, it's my fault. Right. She's like, no, it's not my fault. He did something wrong. Yeah. It's also probably Amarantha's fault.
Yes,
which is like a good awareness. So I think while Feyre is like still gone in these moments, I feel like I'm starting to see signs of her starting to pull out ever so slightly. Yeah. Because she's becoming slightly more aware and she's, you know, asking for things that she probably wouldn't have asked for before. So I'm hopeful.
Yes. There will be a light at the end of the tunnel, I'm sure.
Yes. I mean, we're only 14 chapters into this one.
I know.
So, like, that's a long book of sadness if that
is true.
Stays.
Yeah. Okay. Chapter 15.
Yes. Okay, so this one, the other two were, like, neutral. This one was kind of an in my feels summary. So I said, Feyre explores Valaris and battles with her feelings surrounding the city and herself before going to a dinner where she will meet the inner circle. What were your first thoughts?
Well, it's a city. Like,
it's a city.
It's a city. I mean, I don't know if it's what she's expecting, because she doesn't really give reactions. Yeah. As much as I would kind of hope somebody that had never been in a city would react. So she does have some reaction in that she's pissed. Which we'll get to that in a little bit. Because I have mixed feels about that one.
I have many feelings.
Yeah. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. It's like, you've never been to a city ever. Yeah. And you have no reaction really to it. Yeah. Like, I think I would just be in awe kind of thing. It's like, wow, like, all these people, like, live together, shop together, dine together. Just so many people in one place that all seem happy, like, genuinely happy. I think I would be in awe.
I think she's not letting herself be, though, because of her anger. Yeah. Like, you probably. You can't be both in awe and angry. I feel like those are two that you probably can't hold at the same time.
Probably true.
So I think that it's diminishing the experience for her. Yeah. But it doesn't diminish it for me, because the description of the city is pretty incredible.
I know. I want to go. Yeah. How do I get to Valaris?
How do we go?
So initially, Rhys talks about that he has another house outside of the townhouse. Yeah. And because she, like, steps outside and she's looking, and there's, like, mountain ranges, you know, on, like, 3 sides of her, and there's, like, a river. Yeah. And he's pointing to one of the mountain ranges, and he, like, points to the top, and he's like, that's where my other house is. And you're like, it's at the top of a mountain? What? Yeah. So, but that's the House of Wind is what they call it. But I just thought, I was like, well, that's kind of cool.
That's really cool. Real quick, before she went into the city, they described her outfit, and I just want to call out that it sounded very cute. And I would not hate to, like, wear that same outfit.
No, I definitely
just throwing that out there.
I like the way the style, granted, this is all in my head, this is what I'm imagining, but I like the styling of the Winter Court. Or, excuse me, the Night Court. I like the way that their clothes sound versus, like, the Spring Court. Yeah. I didn't so much care for the
Spring Court felt like ballroom clothes all the time, like these big dresses.
Like, it felt like when you watch a movie and you see, like, fairies and they're all, like, in pretty long dresses and they like dance around the maypole and kind of stuff like that. Like, that's what I think of when I think of the Spring Court apparel. Yeah. Minus, like, obviously Tamlin and Lucien are in, you know, warrior fighting stuff, whatever. Yeah. So I like, it seems way more casual but also, like, cool. Yep.
So now we start to get a little bit of sass from Feyre.
And I do not like her attitude
I don't like it either.
Rhys. I said Rhys. Gosh, going back to my old habits.
No, you're wonderful.
No, I don't like it. I like that she would be pissed that he was able to have a city stay safe while everyone else fought Amarantha. But this city like had been hidden and warded long before her, so nobody knew of it. I was like, you can't. How? Oh, like why are you mad at Rhys when this city has been warded for thousands of years? It wasn't just like
it wasn't just him.
No, it wasn't just him, and it wasn't just from Amarantha. It's been 5,000 years.
Yep.
So this city has been protected for so long that it would make sense that if a city had to be protected, you'd choose that one that's already been protected.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, like, why are you mad? Like, people like Alice didn't have to go into Amarantha, like, under the mountain with her. Like, there's plenty of people. Like, Ianthe escaped. You're not pissed at her.
Yeah.
There's so many people that didn't suffer under the mountain. Why are you so pissed at this city, at Rhys? Yeah. It, like, makes me mad. I was like, there's no justification for this. These people didn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, you don't know anything yet.
No, like, you haven't asked for details. You haven't asked for anything. You're just making assumptions that she comes off like...
She comes off spoiled.
Yeah, and like high and mighty.
Which is weird.
And I'm like, why? Shouldn't you be happy that people didn't have to suffer?
Right.
Like, you're making it sound like...
Like, the whole point of what you did was to end suffering.
Right.
And there's a group of people who didn't have to go through what you did. And that's a good thing.
I know. And it's like, she doesn't know anything about Rhys. And she barely knows, like... much about, like, he doesn't know much about her, so it's like, why would he reveal secrets of this city and like why it's been hidden? It's like, Tamlin, I get being pissed at, like, if he was gonna keep stuff like that from you because you were his fiance.
I mean, he's also not lying to her either, though, is the thing. He's being very open about, like, yeah, this is what I did.
Yeah,
this is what we had to do.
Yeah.
And he even said, he's like, when Amarantha came, I had to make some very hard choices very quickly. And it's like, yeah, that's what being a ruler is.
Right. I don't know why she's so pissed at him, and it makes me mad.
I think
she's acting like a child, like a spoiled child.
Is.
And I was like, grow up, Farrah.
Yeah.
Like, I know everybody's got crap to deal with, but I was like, it's not like Rhys didn't suffer under the mountain.
Yeah.
He was her whore for 50 years. Like, he's suffered too.
Yep.
It's not just you. Like, she makes it like she's the only one that suffered.
Yeah.
No, Farrah. Like, he had mentioned all those people that had to like kill each other when they were like shoved into those rooms with no light. It's like, I'm sorry, they were actually suffering for 50 years straight. You suffered for 3 months, and not really even 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a lot of sympathy, empathy for you on this point.
Yeah. My only thought, my only like remotely redeeming thought is that what I think is happening is she has all of these emotions.
Yeah.
And it's like, what she needs something to lash out on.
Oh, for like, I totally get it.
That's
just
what it is.
And
she's just pissed, and she's chosen this to be her target.
Yeah,
and
which is unfortunate, but like, I get it.
Yes, so it's like, I understand why she's doing this. I still don't think it's right.
No, not at all.
But
and she makes an interesting comment, like observation. She said, "But no one on the streets looked twice at me, even at Rhysand's side. Perhaps they had no idea who I was. Perhaps city dwellers didn't care who was in their midst." And I was like, excuse me. Like, it almost sounds like she's pissy that people don't recognize her. When I think about how she went to the Spring Court and she was like, everybody was calling me Farrah Cursebreaker. And she's like, I didn't like that kind of attention. But then she's like, people don't even know who I am. Like, I'm right at Rhys's side and they don't even notice me. And I'm like, who are you?
Yeah. I think in that moment, she thinks like they're ungrateful. Like, I don't know.
But I was like, excuse me, Farrah. Like, back off. You don't know what these people have gone through. Like, I did not like this little part of the chapter.
And at one point she goes, so what is there that was worth saving at the cost of everyone else? And I'm like, cool, bitch.
Yeah.
Like, cool off. And he goes, everything.
Yeah.
And then we get to explore the city.
I know. Which just seems amazing.
It seems lovely. We won't like recap this whole description, but I want to go wherever this is.
I know. But there's like 4 different like areas to it.
Yes.
And there's like an artist quarter that Farrah can't bring herself to go into.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, that's like the very far part of it, and she's like, I can't. And so
they call it the Rainbow of Valaris.
It's so sweet.
I also love that while they're walking around, she said the people that spotted him, Rhys, offered warm, broad smiles. Some approached, gripping his hand to welcome him back. He knew each of them by name, and they addressed him by his. Like, that, it's just such an, again, we can't not compare this to how Tamlin and his people interact.
It's the total opposite.
It's very different. Like, Tamlin was just so formal with his people.
Yeah.
And Rhys just seemed, he knows them all by name, and it says they addressed him by his. They're not saying, hi, Lord.
Right.
They're saying Rhys or Rhysand.
And it just seems like he is actually invested in his people. The fact that he knows their names, that he is, like, being welcomed back. It's like, clearly they had an investment in him. Well, and he's invested in them.
He has this reputation of being this monster.
Right.
And it's like, these people are happy he's home. So it's like, there's just so much conflicting, like, thoughts around him compared to, like, how he acts around, or how we've seen him act, right? And how he is right now. And it's just like, who really is this guy?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, but they, you know, everybody's, like, starts viewing the sunset, and Feyre's thinking, I wanted to scream at them, wanted to pick up a loose piece of cobblestone and shatter the nearest window, wanted to unleash that power boiling beneath my skin and show them what had been done to me, to the rest of the world, while they admired sunsets and painted and drank tea by the river. And I'm like, cool your jets.
Well,
like,
Rhys hears.
He hears this, and he's like, calm down.
Yeah. Says, my people are blameless.
Yeah.
And it's true.
They are.
And I think him just kind of, like, calling her out on that seems to pull her out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think she's fully out of there, but her little tantrum seems to
have ended, thankfully.
For now.
Yeah.
But I thought also, so 2 quick things just on him and helping her experience Valaris. When he's telling that she's, like, not able to go into the artist quarter,
right,
he says, like, we can come back another day. And then even still at the end when she's tired, he goes, you know, tomorrow night we'll go for a walk. It was built to be viewed after dark anyway. So it's like, he's like, I appreciate that he's not, like, pushing her,
right,
but he's still, like, bringing her out.
Yeah. And he's, like, encouraging her and kind of just, like, almost acting like it's normal that she didn't want to go out today. It's like she wanted to stop. It's like, oh yeah, we'll just go back tomorrow. Like, no big deal kind of thing. Like, not making it into something bigger than it needs to be.
Yeah, that was the vibe I got. So, like, I think even through her being a little bit of a child, he's handling her experience really well.
Yeah, I agree.
So, once they are done exploring Valaris, we're getting ready to go to dinner.
Yes.
I thought it was interesting that the point of this dinner is that he wants her to meet his inner circle before she decides if this is the place that she'd like to stay.
Yeah. Which,
again, I think it's interesting that this is a decision for her, not just...
I agree.
...where she's stuck.
Yeah, and Rhys is describing Amren to Feyre.
Oh, yeah.
And she thinks... you know, maybe it would be a mercy to be ended, because he's kind of talking about how she's like this almost like otherworldly creature, and like, don't like steal her jewels or she'll like get you basically. And so Feyre thinks like maybe it would be a mercy to be ended, and then a broad hand gripped my face gently enough not to hurt, but hard enough to make me look at him. Don't you ever think that, Rhysand hissed, his eyes livid, not for one damn moment. I was like, oh my god.
I'm crying again.
I know.
Like, I can't.
The sheer like concern for someone else, the fact, like, again, they don't know each other, and he is just the most kind person to her. And it's like, how can you, the fact that he won't even let her think that is just, it's remarkable. It's like, this is like the kindest fae, the kindest person, whatever, that we've met. And just how can someone be like that when they have the reputation of the exact opposite? Right. Well, it's just amazing to me.
And we also found out he is the most powerful High Lord in history, which is very intimidating.
It's a lot.
With, quote, bedroom eyes.
I know. I like that.
Did you notice that?
I did notice that. Yeah, I saw that, Farrah. Well, again, I mean, we talked about this before. Her body, like, lusts for the sky. Really but does. Her head and her heart are like, heck no.
Right.
So the bedroom eyes, yeah, that cracked me up. It was just a subtle little just throw in. But so while he's like grabbing her face or whatever, she somehow slips into his mind, and she like sees herself from his eyes. So like similar to when she like was dying under the mountain, and like she saw herself like with her broken neck and everything. This is
like she did with Lucian,
right? Or she was like, this is the same thing. She like slips into his head and she sees herself, and she like looks horrible.
Oh my gosh!
Like that. terrible.
Yeah, it says, I looked as if rage and grief and despair had eaten me alive, as if I was again starved, not for food, but for joy and life.
It sounds horrible.
Like,
I can't even imagine.
Girl. It's a lot.
Yeah. But it's crazy that she was able to do that, because Reese is like, how'd you do that?
Right.
How'd you slip past my shield?
Well, because the mind is like his big power.
Right. And it's like, how could she get past his shield? And she's like, what are you talking about, basically?
Yeah.
And he's just like interesting, because maybe it's because of, you know, the bond that we have, or like the deal, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's so funny. He's like, interesting. She's like, I don't care. What are you talking about?
I know. He's almost excited about it.
I know.
And he explains, like, the power is called Daimati, and that's, like, who he is, where they can, like, walk into each other's minds. So we get to learn about that, which is cool. She does get another jab in. This one was the one that, like, really bothered me. She made a comment. She said, so what? Your pampered people, those who can't shield their minds, they get your protection and don't have to fight while the rest of us bleed? Get over it.
I know. Come on, Farrah.
Yeah.
So, but before they go, Reese tells her that it's her choice about whether or not she wants to, like, go and meet his friends and, like, feel them out. And I just, again, like, I respect that he's giving her the choice to let her make her own decisions.
Yeah. It's just new. And then they start to go up to the House of Wind,
which they have to fly to, which cracks me up. Because it's like, yeah, like, who would make a place where you can't winnow into it? Like, even the High Lord. He's like, yeah, I don't know who designed this one, but.
And he says, I promise I won't drop you. Oh, I accidentally jumped past it, but I think once she had a second to calm down, she was looking over the city again. And she said, life, so full of life, I could nearly taste it crackling on my tongue. So I think she's starting to see the beauty in the city, too.
Yeah.
So then what happens? They fly.
They fly up to the House of Wind.
And
one thing, I know this is, like, near the end, but Farrah, I think she's finally starting to think for herself. And actually be reflective about, like, who she is, what she needs. She says, I'm thinking that I was a lonely, hopeless person, and I might have fallen in love with the first thing that showed me a hint of kindness and safety. And I'm thinking maybe he knew that, maybe not actively, but maybe he wanted to be that person for someone. And maybe that worked for who I was before. Maybe it doesn't work for who or what I am now.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. I mean, it's true, though. You think about, like, where Farrah was when she first started this journey, and, like, she wanted that protector, and that's, like, what Tamlin is, who Tamlin is.
Yeah.
And that's what he wanted to do for somebody. And I mean, it worked, but now it's like she's wanting to make her own choices, and she doesn't need to be protected anymore. Yeah. And I just like that she's actually, like, being self-reflective for once while she's away from him, because I feel like she always just avoids it and puts off thinking about it, and then just winds up, like, going back and then having all these thoughts when she's there.
Yeah.
So I just liked that. I was like, oh, she's, you know, starting to develop some thoughts here.
Right. Well, it's not just thoughts. She told Reese that.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
I know, she's very open with him, and it's like, wait, why can't you just talk to Tamlin or Lucian even? Like, Lucian knows, like, Tamlin. But it's like you're talking to a stranger about your deepest, darkest feelings, and it's so interesting. But sometimes it's almost easier to do that.
I also think we kind of jumped past this. There was a whole bunch of Reese convo that I think led her to feeling more open.
Oh, right, about it, like, his mom.
Yeah,
and everything.
So he, like, shares about his mom and flying and the story behind that, and then he does you say what's on your mind, one thing, and I'll say one too. And so he's kind of is pulling us out of her. And he starts and he says, I'm thinking that I spent 50 years locked under the mountain, and I'd sometimes let myself dream of this place, but I'd never expected to see it again. I'm thinking that I wish I had been the one who slaughtered her. I'm thinking that if war comes, it might be a long while yet before I get to have a night like this. So it's like he led with vulnerability, and I think hearing that And it's something that he's been doing. He's trying to pull her out. He's trying to have these conversations with her. And he's just continuing to be vulnerable, which is something that's not easy for people.
No.
And again, comparing to Tamlin, impossible for Tamlin.
Yes. So Tamlin never opens up.
Exactly. So it's so just like interesting him like sharing his family background and then sharing those very vulnerable thoughts. I think that's what leads her to actually like
open up
and say what's really on her mind.
I feel like Rhys knows what each person like needs or like needs to hear. Yeah. And it's like he can be that for that person. It's like he sees that Farrah needs that vulnerability first, so he can do that. Yeah. Give her the choice. He can do that. He sees that like not that Tamlin needs an opponent, but it's like he needs to like hate someone. So it's like he can be that for Tamlin. He sees like what Amarantha needs and he can be that. Like he's just this person that's like
kind of morphs to who
and it's not people pleasing. Like I don't think he's a people pleaser because he's very much doing this for himself, for the people he loves. But I just think he's like really
he just understands people.
I think he understands people and he's really smart about how he acts and like the choices behind his actions. Yeah. So he's just a very like intellectual, like not I don't know, intellectual is the right word, but just very intuitive into what other people like need and think and feel.
Yeah. I think also like emotionally intelligent.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's probably a very good way to put it.
Yeah. And then they pause and he says later because the two winged males from earlier were standing in the doorway, grinning. Bum, bum, bum.
Gonna meet the inner circle.
Inner circle time. So chapter 16. Let me get to the summary. This is our last chapter today. This is such a long chapter. Oh my
this was good, but it was long, but it was so good. Like there's just it's so nice to like meet all these characters and kind of like get some of their backstories and kind of see how they interact with each other, and I just loved it. Sorry, I'll let you read the summary before I just like
this
gave
was
my
also
overview.
in my feels chapter for me because I think I was just so like happy meeting people and like here and also like some of their backstories were so tragic. Yeah. But I said Farrah meets the inner circle and makes her decision.
Yeah, that's short and simple. That's all you need to summarize this basically. Yep. And like you said, there's 4 people. Yep. In the inner circle. So we meet Cassian and Azriel.
Right off the bat.
And we've met more already. And then we meet Amren. Yes. Who was that other female that had come into the townhouse. Yes.
And so high level summary, I guess, maybe of what we kind of learn about each person. Cassian he was a bastard in the Illyrian camp, and him and his mother kind of like took him in, even though they hated each other and fought each other. Yeah. And Azriel was a spy master and eventually joined there too, and was also taken in, and that's kind of how the 3 of them met.
Yeah. Well, Azriel became spy master.
He's a shadow singer. Shadow singer.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
And he became spy master, and Cassian became like leader of Rhys's armies.
Yep. So they've known each other since they were kids, basically.
Yeah. And then Mora's his cousin, and she's his 3rd in command. Yes. And then Amren is
number 2,
and not of this world.
No, she's like trapped in a fae body.
She's an interesting one. Yeah. And we get a little of her, but we don't get a lot about her, which I think probably because they don't know a lot about her. Yeah. I feel like it's one of those things. It's like she's just this mystery to them. But I'm very intrigued by her.
Yeah. Personality wise, right off, because we first meet Cassian and Azriel. Yep. Cassian seems very outgoing, friendly, says what's on his mind. Yep. Azriel tends to be a bit more laid back. Yes. But the 3 of them call each other brother. Right. So they're very informal with each other.
I love how they act with each other. Yeah. And you can just, there's so much personality amongst the 3 of them, and they act like true brothers.
They like, really do.
It's really funny just the way that Azriel sits back and like lets Cassian almost make a fool of himself, and then like steps in and is like, hold on, like let me correct this kind of thing. And then Rhys just gives both of them grief. I really enjoyed the banter and the bonding that they had.
And then Mor was the one who came in next, and I just thought how sweet it was, how excited Mor was to see Feyre.
Yeah, she really was. I thought it was interesting the way that Farrah was describing the shadows and how they interact and like move around Azriel. Yeah. And so I was like, does he control them? Like, I know we find out he's a shadow singer. Yeah. And they say, what is it? Oh, so Shadow Singers are rare, coveted by courts and territories across the world for their stealth and predisposition to hear and feel things others can't.
Yep.
I was like, okay. But I was like, does that also literally mean, like, shadows? Like, can they control the shadows? Just because, like, the way, like, she kept describing how they were, like, moving and how he was almost, like, pulling them into himself or, like, extending them out. Like, I thought that was a really interesting, like, power. I don't really know.
Well, it allows him to, like, hear things and know things that most don't. So, like, controlling shadows in a way makes sense.
Yeah, so I just thought
but we'll learn more about that, hopefully.
I thought that was an interesting one.
Yeah. And then Amryn came in, and I think it was that she looked high fae, but what it was is you could see in her eyes that it was.
It's like this ancient wisdom kind of thing.
Yes.
And Amryn's just like this weird character to me.
Yeah.
But she says that there's only ever been 3 that were something else and then remade.
Yeah.
And it's herself, Feyre, and Miriam, whoever Miriam is.
Well, the first thing she says to Feyre is, so there are 2 of us now.
Yeah.
It's like, hello.
Hi, I'm Feyre. Nice to meet you.
Right. But so they mentioned Miriam, like you said, and the question is kind of like, who is Miriam? Where'd that name come from?
And Rhys kind of just like, he says like she's fine and kind of just like moves past it. So you're like, oh, okay. But she says that like Miriam wasn't like made into like a new body. She was kind of just like, her life is like extended. Whereas Feyre, like her bones, like her everything was completely remade. So it's just like, it's interesting. And I mean, we don't really get to know more about Amryn being remade.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what? Are you like more like Miriam? Are you more like Feyre?
Yeah.
Like what
happened to you?
Who are you? Tell us more.
As they're all talking to each other, Moore kind of like leans over and tells Feyre that she asked Rhys if she could take her to dinner, just the 2 of us, and he said you wouldn't want to, but honestly, would you rather spend time with these 2 ancient boars or me? And I just think it's funny that like she's going out of her way to like want to be like friendly with her.
Yeah.
And there was something she said. Where did it go?
I was gonna say, because she was friendly the first time Feyre came to the night court.
Always been friendly.
She was like, just call me and I'll come. Like,
yeah.
And Feyre was like, oh, she doesn't actually mean that. Doesn't like want to be bothered. But it's like, no, she does. Like, and clearly, like the way she's saying this now, it's like, oh, she really wants to be friends with Feyre, which is so sweet.
It really is. And I can't find the quote, but I know it's somewhere in here, so we'll come across it eventually. But Feyre at one point is literally like, no, I actually could see myself going to dinner with her and like wanting to. So it's cool to see her connecting with these people also.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's toward the end of the chapter. Okay. She was like, Moore was basically saying like things to her and showing her like what a true friend is. Yeah. Whereas she's like reflecting on like who Ianthe was and how she thought Ianthe was like a true friend, but now it's like clearly it's not. Yeah. Like Moore actually cares about her and like what's going on.
Like, wouldn't make decisions for her. It was such a good quote. I'm so mad I can't find it right now.
We'll probably get to it once you like get to the end of the chapter.
Fair enough.
What else? Okay, so Rhys, he talks about how Oz and Cassian, their siphons. Like, so like Feyre notices these like circle things on their hands and she's kind of like eyeballing them. Like, what's that?
Yeah.
And so he explains that basically they wear them and that's how they're able to harness their power. And I thought it was a really good explanation how basically like they have all this raw power and it's like throwing a bucket of paint against something versus like being able to use a paintbrush and like directing that. I was like, that's so like clear and like easy for me to see exactly like how they're able to like harness the magic or power or whatever you want to call it.
But Rhysand, it doesn't work for him, so that's why he doesn't have any, which is cool. And apparently it's like a really big deal that like bastard Illyrians have it,
right? So
you know that they are quite the badasses. Something that stuck out to me is at one point Rhys said, remind me to have family dinners more often.
I know, it was cute.
So it's like she's like, family, not official court gatherings. She said, and tonight either they didn't know that I was here to decide if I truly wished to work with Rhys, or they didn't feel like pretending to be anything but what they were. They'd no doubt worn whatever they felt like. I had the rising feeling that I could have showed up in my nightgown and they would have cared, or they wouldn't have cared. A unique group indeed. And against Hybern, who would they be? What could they do as allies or opponents? And it's just, I don't know. I just really enjoyed meeting all these people.
I did too. And I'm glad like Feyre, like as, you know, Rhys is talking, as everybody's talking and like kind of getting backstories and whatnot, Farrah is kind of starting to see the light and realizing that, like, Rhys really did his best by picking, like, one place and defending it from Amarantha while he's under the mountain. Like, because he's, you know, she brings it up a little bit and, like, clearly he's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it said silence fell. Like, it wasn't just him being uncomfortable. They're all uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, it's made aware that none of them were under the mountain. It was just her and Rhys.
Well, and she said, so this is all in her head, and this whole chunk I just thought was really important. She said, Rhys hadn't expected to see them again when he'd been dragged under the mountain, yet he had kept them safe somehow. And it killed them, the 4 people at this table. It killed them all that he'd done it, however he'd done it, even Amren. Perhaps not only for the fact that Rhys had endured Amarantha while they had been there, perhaps it was also for those left outside the city too. Perhaps picking one city, one place to shield was better than nothing. Perhaps it was a comforting thing to have a spot in Prynthian that remained untouched, unsullied. And then Moore said there's not one person in the city who was unaware of what went on outside these borders or of the cost. And it was just like, I think that was, she says afterwards, like, that was a very humbling moment for Feyre to, like, realize, like, oh, this was not, like, people being pampered. No. It wasn't, like, people taking an easy route. Mm-hmm. Like, there was much more to it, and they still have pain.
Right.
Based off of what happened. They weren't, like...
just living in this, like, fairy tale.
Right, exactly.
And, I'm glad it's, like, they actually, like, tell her the truth. Like, no, this is what happened. It's, like, she needs to know what happened and make her understand, like, she can't be pissed at these people because it wasn't their choice to be hidden.
Yeah.
Like, Rhys chose this. He chose to protect them. Mm-hmm. So.
And it's enlightening for her, too, because she's like, if they might all live through their pain, might still laugh. And so she's, like, starting to realize, like, they're okay.
Yeah.
Like, they still went through it, but they're okay. So, like, maybe I could be.
Yeah. And then there's more conversation. So we learn about Rhys's parents and their mating bond and basically how poorly female Illyrians are treated, getting their wings clipped. And it kind of just reminded me of, like, female, like, FGM, like the mutilation and everything. And I was like, this feels very much, like, similar to that. But we learned that, like, his mother's wings were saved because of the mating bond, because his father, like, basically, like, took her back and allowed her to keep her wings and fly, which is so sweet because he had talked about how much he loved to fly with his mom in the last chapter.
Yeah.
So that was just really sweet. And then, you know, they're kind of talking about how, like, his mother, because Farrah is surprised. She's like, why would your mom bring you to this horrible place and train? And he's like, my mother didn't want me to rely on my power. She knew from the moment she conceived me that I'd be hunted my entire life. Where one strength failed, she wanted others to save me. My education was another weapon, which was why she went with me to tutor me after lessons were done for the day. And I was like, I love his mother.
His mom is so cool.
I'm like, she's brilliant. Like, the fact that she knew he was super powerful, she didn't care. She was like, no, that's not enough. Like, what happens if you don't have power? Like, or what happens if something happens? You need to have alternate things. It's like, you need to be smart. You need to be trained in everything that you can be. And, like, that kind of makes Farrah kind of realize, like, oh, like, maybe I do need to, like, learn about my powers. Like, I think she said, I would not be weak again. I would not be dependent on anyone else. I would never have to endure the touch of the Attor as it dragged me because I was too helpless to know where and how to hit. Never again. So I was like, yes, Farrah. Yes. Like, I'm glad. It sucks that it took you this long to, like, realize that you need to do this for yourself. But I'm glad that hearing Rhys's story and, like, all these other people's stories was enough to get you to think about yourself and actually, like, make conscious thoughts and decisions and reflections on what you've been doing and what you need to do for yourself.
Yeah. And just talking to them is helping her come alive in the slightest ways. Like, at one point she says, like, some surviving small part of my heart wanted to laugh at that, like, in reference to something someone said. And so it's like, almost immediately she's coming alive a little bit.
She is.
Which is just so, like, just amazing.
Yeah. We also learned that the Night Court is divided into 2 courts.
Right.
So there's the Court of Dreams, which is, like, Valaris and everything. And then there's the Court of Nightmares, which is Hewn City. So we kind of just learn the difference. And I just like the names of them.
Yeah. Well, that's the 2 sides of night.
It is.
Oh, and just like back to Reese's mom, like, and just how incredible she is. I'm just flipping through these notes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like the way that she handled Cassian and Azriel.
Oh, I love it so much.
The way that like she helped not just brought them in, but their dynamic.
Right.
Like, she really is someone to credit for the Fae men that they are today.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So, I just really liked that.
Yeah.
And then, okay, this was something, okay. No, before I jump to that thing, I thought it was Moore's backstory real quick. She didn't go into it.
Nope.
But she said, I was a dreamer born into the court of nightmares, so I got out. And I'm like, what does that mean?
I know. Well, like, so I'm guessing she's from the Hewn City.
Yes.
And I'm guessing she either hated it, was hated, like, she's probably the black sheep is what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Just based on that. It's like she clearly didn't fit in because she gets along so well with Reese and Cassie and Azriel. I'm guessing, like, this is where she's meant to be. But yeah, it's
very intriguing that she just kind of ended it.
I know. Well, and like Farrah alludes to the fact that it's like maybe her story is the worst because she didn't tell it, and like because like just that comment.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
it's like their stories are not great.
No, not at all.
But speaking of stories, I thought it was really interesting how they all give their little spiels, and then Cassian says to her, "What's your story then?"
Yeah.
Like, they want to get to know her too.
I know. I did not like her story. She was just like, I felt like it was like bullet points. Like, how can I just quickly paraphrase my life? Like, without like any interesting. And maybe it's because like we know Farrah and like we know her whole story and like everything that she's been through emotionally. And I felt like her story was so like, oh, I went to the park. Oh, I went to the grocery store. Oh, I did this. Oh, I did. Like, it was literally just like a play by play versus like any actual like in-depth story. Because it's like, I felt like a lot of them like kind of gave, like there was a lot of thought and feeling into their stories, and she was just like A, B, C, D.
I mean, she gave a little bit then more.
She did give more. I don't know. I felt like I got more out of more. Just the fact that she's like gives a little more detail into it. I don't know. So I was like, really, Farrah? Like, this is all you got? Come on.
I mean, for now it is.
I know. I was just being probably just a little too judgmental there, but
as we are with Farrah sometimes.
I know.
Okay, but I found the Moore part that I was just obsessed with in this chapter because I'm a big Moore fan. So they started talking about like fighting, like that got brought up. Cassian offered to help her, and she says, "You don't think it sends a bad message to people? If people see me learning to fight using weapons." And then she said to herself, the moment the words were out, I realized the stupidity of them. And I was like, oh, yep. But then Moore, it says, silence. Then Moore said with a soft venom that made me understand the High Lord's Third had received training of her own in the Court of Nightmares. Let me tell you two things, as someone who has perhaps been in your shoes before. 1, you left the Spring Court. That does not send a message for good or bad, then your training will not either. 2, I once lived in a place where the opinion of others mattered. It suffocated me, nearly broke me. So you'll understand me, Farrah, when I say that I know what you feel, and I know what they tried to do to you, and that with enough courage, you can say to hell with a reputation. You do what you love, what you need. I was just like, girl power, girlfriends.
I know.
I love strong female friends.
Yes. And that's when, like, after she said that, that's when Farrah realizes, like, Moore is a true friend versus Ianthe was nothing like this.
And it's so funny us saying, like, oh, Moore is a true friend, because Moore, similar to Reese, like, they don't know each other very well.
No, not at all.
And it's like, how are these people that she barely knows treating her better and with more respect than the people that she was with for so long in the Spring Court? It's just baffling to me.
It is. Yeah. So.
And so after that, she accepts the offer to work with them all.
Which makes me very happy. I was like, you're doing something for yourself. You're doing, like, you're making your own decision. And it's like, you seem to like these people. And I'm like, I'm glad you're doing something with people that you seem to like.
Yeah. So. Or like people that are at minimum bringing life out of you.
Yes, very true.
And I thought it's just Reese's response was just like, good, because we start tomorrow.
Yep.
It's like, oh, okay, this is happening.
This is happening. This is a real deal.
Yep.
Yeah, one other thing that they mentioned, so like after she's basically like agreeing, they bring up like the prison and the bone carver.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, where's the prison?
Yep.
And then who's the bone carver? I was like, well, this leads to, I was like, are these more like creatures? Like what? I mean, I hear prison. I think like human normal prison. Like, I was like, is this the same thing? Or is this just like a play on words? Is this like another, like, is it kind of like Under the Mountain where it's like an actual, not place, but like, you know, place?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just curious. I'm like, what is all this?
Yeah. Well, and the reason they bring it up is because Reese tells them that Hybern is trying to resurrect Jurian, who was the guy who's like eyeball
and finger went missing.
And finger was being worn by Amarantha.
Yep.
And then went missing. So like, there's some weird shit going on in the background with that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it's also confirmed that the adder was never caught.
Yeah, so they think maybe the adder took it maybe to Hybern, and so Hybern's going to try to resurrect Jurian, but it's like, why? Why would he resurrect this human?
Yeah.
Which I'm curious about.
Yeah, it's like, A, how? B, why?
Yeah, 2 very valid questions.
But they kind of keep talking about the prison, and it comes to find out that Feyre is going to be the one.
Yep, because Amren refused. Well, she said, like, Cassian and Azriel definitely can't go.
Right.
And then she said, like, even Rhys can't go, but she said...
He said he won't talk to Rhys.
Yeah, he won't talk to Rhys, but Feyre, he'd be interested in, basically.
Yep. And I thought it was interesting. She goes, the bone carver, the naga, the adder, the Suriel, the boggy, the Midgard worm. Maybe they'd broken whatever part of me truly feared. Or maybe fear was only something I now felt in my dreams. And Rhys goes, your choice, Feyre. And she says, to shirk and mourn or face some unknown horror, the choice was easy. How bad can it be? And I was like,
oh, I don't know.
But also, I feel like feisty Feyre all of a sudden. Like, that's brave Feyre. That's like...
That's who we love.
I love
You've
her
come
so
back,
much.
Feyre. You've made, like, a big decision, like... to fight the bad guys, to be fearless.
I know.
I'm like, yes, this is good. Like, these people are bringing this out of you. These are who you need to be around. So, I'm excited.
Me too. It's hard to end there.
I know. But that was a good ending spot, I think.
Yes.
So, because I feel like there's, like, life again in Feyre. Like, big things are coming. Like, this is all, like, the downhill definitely is on the uphill now.
Yeah, absolutely. So next week, we're going to do, next week we're going to do chapters 17 through 19.
Okay.
And this should be no surprise. This section is called The Bone Carver.
Wow, a little foreshadowing there.
I know, but like...
Yep.
They ended with it. It's expected.
As I said, it's very similar to the Suriel, how we ended that chapter and then we met the Suriel. Yep.
Yeah. No, Sarah J. Maas is sneaky. She's not always.
Not that sneaky. Or not in everything.
So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. These are some of our like favorite chapters of this book. So hope you guys enjoyed.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to A Court of Fairies and Fangirls, a Sarah J. Maas fan podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and let us know what you think.
You can find us on Instagram at Fairies and Fangirls. Jump in on the conversation, and we look forward to chatting with you more next week. Bye.
Bye.